Good morning. Welcome to online worship here at the Unitarian Society of Northampton in Florence. My name is Jessica Harwood, and I'm the Director of Faith Development and Community Engagement. We're so glad to be here with you all. We are a congregation with a tradition of liberal faith and committed social action. We uphold the principles and values of our Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, and we strive to be a community where all are welcomed and included, without regard to age, race or background, sexual orientation, gender identity, or abilities. If you're new or haven't been here for a while, or haven't done this online yet, we're glad for all of you who are here for the first time this morning. And for those of you who have been coming, it's been so wonderful to be here with you all. If you would like to receive updates about our online offerings, our community support network that has been developed, and other ways we're responding in this time, there's a link in the chat with our virtual visitor card, which is also on the homepage of our website. And this will be really important moving into the future so that we can be in touch with you with Zoom links, because we're not going to be publicizing those publicly. Last week we had some technical glitches, so we've tried to clean those up and make sure that they won't happen again. On that note, we just wanted to talk a little bit about Zoom. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a microphone that should say unmute right now, and you don't have the ability to unmute yourself during the service. But it's helpful to know for other times that you may want to mute yourself or unmute yourself. Your camera it says video on there, and yours should say start video, and you also shouldn't, you should just leave it so it says start video. Let's see, the chat is available. However, we are gonna ask that we only use the chat during the greeting. So you can take your hands off your keyboards, just relax and be present with us all during this time. And there will be a chance where we'll have you all say hi to each other through the chat. And that just looks like a speech bubble on the bottom of your screen. So we're hoping that everything goes smoothly this week. We have a few people acting as co-hosts today that are going to help just monitor the chat and make sure that everything is happening the way we're planning for it to happen. Susan Frederick Gray, the president of the UUA, made a pastoral message for everyone this week, and she said, "Perfection is never the goal." We appreciate this opportunity to practice compassion and acceptance together. After the service, we invite you to stick around for virtual social hour, where you'll be put into a small group to reflect on the service together. The 4th through 8th graders will have their class from 11 to noon. Parents and caregivers are meeting at 11:30, and the coming of age class is meeting at 12:30. Those Zoom links have all been sent through email. This service features contributions by members of our community, Steve O'Day and Cathy Lilly. We also have additions of photos, drawings, and other things that people have sent. Feel free to send things in the future of what you're doing during this time to share with others. We very much appreciate this time to all be together, to listen, reflect, sing, and simply be. And now we'll begin our service.
We pause this morning from the chaos of the world to reclaim the beauty, the peace, and the joy of this time together, that it may carry us through the week ahead. And I'm going to kindle the chalice, and then we will join in speaking our chalice lighting words. We light our chalice as a beacon of hope, a sign of our quest for truth and meaning. We light our chalice as a beacon of love in celebration of the life we share together. From all that dwell beyond the sky, blessings of hope and faith arise. Let peace circle on every side, every land, every dawn. Make us follow our soul. Serve as we want to feel. And my name is Make on what never Now Steve has a story for us.
Good morning. The book that I have this morning is We Were Tired of Living in a House by Liesl Moak Scorpin. And this book provides a great little illustration of the beauty of passing on a tradition within a family. When I was growing up, my siblings and I used to have a favorite book. It was called Loud Mouse. And every time my parents wanted to read us a bedtime story, we'd ignore a large shelf full of books and we'd all ask for Loud Mouse. I was a little too young at the time to pay terribly close attention to my parents' reaction, but I fully expect there was some sort of an eye roll before they cheerfully agreed to read our favorite book again. So it's been really nice to pass that tradition down within my family. When our girls were little and it was time for a bedtime story, even though we had a shelf full of books, the kids would say and roll their eyes, "Okay, Daddy, you can read. We were tired of living in a house again." So now I'm thrilled that I get to share it with you. We Were Tired of Living in a House by Liesl Moak Scorpin, illustrations by Doris Burns. We were tired of living in a house. So we packed a bag with sweaters and socks and scarves and mittens and woolen caps. And we moved to a tree. We liked our tree. There was always a breeze in the afternoon that rippled through our roof. Above in a branch lived a speckled bird who sang all day for the sake of a song. And our roof in the autumn turned scarlet and gold. We liked our tree until we tumbled out. So we packed our bag with sweaters and socks and scarves and mittens and scarlet leaves and gold. And we moved to a pond. We liked our pond. We built a raft and floated about among the reeds and lily pads. Below, fish darted, dragonflies above, and pond frogs sang with us on summer nights. We liked our pond until we sank. So we packed our bags with sweaters and socks and scarves and scarlet leaves and gold and a frog who was a particular friend. And we moved to a cave. We liked our cave. We slept on beds of cool green moss. We hunted for blackberries in the woods. We dipped our water from the brook and roasted walnuts over a fire. When we weren't busy, we explored. We liked our cave until we met the bears. So we packed our bag with sweaters and socks and scarlet leaves and gold and a frog who was a particular friend and precious stones that caught and held the sun. And we moved to the sea. We liked the sea. We built a castle on the shore from salty water and warm sea sand with turrets and towers and moats about. We hunted for treasure and dove in the waves. We slept to the pleasant songs of the surf. We liked our castle on the shore, but the tides kept washing us out to sea. So we packed our bag with sweaters and scarlet leaves and gold and a frog who was a particular friend and precious stones that caught and held the sun and seashells singing like the surf. And we went home to live in a house.
And now it's time for our community greeting. You are welcome now to use the chat. Say hello to one another. Say hello to someone you don't know. Say hello to the entire congregation of 141 plus who knows how many people watching along with the person tuned in. Hi, Joanna. Hi, Eileen, Daniel. Hey, Beth Ann. Hey, Terry. Hey, Jessica McSparrington. David McSparrington. Molly, Julie. Wow. Hey, Kitty and Nick. Hey, Paula. Hey, Wally. Hello, Gail. That was a great story. Steve's going to tell you a little bit about it later, a little bit more about it. Hey, Kate, Kathy, Madeline, Dash. Hi, Sally. Emily, Marisol, and family. Hope you're all doing well. So we're going to move from the chat now. You'll have time to speak with each other later, and we're going to join in singing hymn number 407. The words are about to appear for you. It's Welcome Table. We're gonna say welcome
Gonna sit at the welcome table. Gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days. All kinds of people around the table. All kinds of people around that table one of these days. Hallelujah. All kinds of people around that table. Gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days. She's all at the welcome table. No fancy jar at the welcome table one of these days. Fancy jar at the welcome table. Gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days. Singing joy and tears at the welcome. Singing joy and tears at the welcome table one of these days. Hallelujah. Singing joy and tears at the welcome table. Gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days.
And now Cathy has a reflection. Just want you to know that the reason we're not in the camera when we're singing is that we're trying to optimize the sound and the balance between the piano and the voices. So it's not that I don't want you to see us or that we don't want you to, yes, it's not that we don't want you to see us. And now Cathy has a reflection for us.
Good morning, friends. A friend was recently telling me about an experience he had on a bus. With a new job, he began taking the same bus at the same time every day. After a while, he realized that all the others on the bus seemed to know each other. Within a few months, he was part of that pop-up community that celebrated birthdays and took notice when someone was missing. It made me wonder about the human penchant for forming communities. Indeed, if you put people together, communities usually form. At work, church, gyms, schools, colleges, people who are thrown together on a regular basis often end building strong and warm bonds of caring. Now, recently, I have been struggling with the spiritual question, is the universe good? For theists, this is essentially the same question as, given the evil in the universe, how can I believe in a loving God? For me, given the evil I see everywhere around us, I suspect that the answer is that, at best, the universe is neutral. That's not a very satisfying answer. And I am always searching for a different answer, for glimpses of goodness. In thinking about community, I may have found some small sliver of hope. Maybe the tendency of human beings to form caring communities is a manifestation of the goodness of the universe. Maybe the fact that communities form spontaneously wherever people gather is evidence that the universe is not neutral, but good. And maybe, as we seek for meaningful lives, one answer may be that there is no higher purpose for human beings than to live in and contribute to communities. So, how does one contribute to a community? By doing what is natural to our nature as social animals. That is, by creating loving connections with others, and by being compassionate and kind and loving and generous towards one another. While participating in communities, like speaking to you today, it warms my heart to imagine that my engagement aligns me with the goodness of the universe. Thank you for being one of my beloved communities.
I think Jessica is going to have some remarks before the offering, but she needs to get here. So if you'll bear with us for just a minute. Well, then just show it. Just.
Hello. Thank you all for bearing with us. So we just wanted to let you know of things that are happening here in the community once again, and then in our larger Pioneer Valley community. Here we have the USNF Community Cares Network, which a few members of the congregation put together. And that's a way for people to run errands for each other, help out with Zoom or other technological questions, and for those people who are more in high-risk categories or who just need help either with errands or other things like that, to be able to reach out to ask for that help. And we'll put all of that information into the chat. Also, if you're in need of financial assistance, the offering for the last few weeks and continuing into the future is going to the Minister's Help Fund.
And other efforts such as the Interfaith Health Fund, and as we become aware of them and their needs, efforts in the community. So all of our offering for the foreseeable future will go towards COVID-related needs for our neighbors and within our own community.
And other things that you will find on our website are ways to contribute to those larger community efforts, as well as resources for you. So there's meals for families with kids 18 and under that are being given out in Northampton. We'll put the information about that into the chat. And then there's a huge variety of resources that you'll find, from online AA meetings to other ways that people in the community can receive help. So thank you all very much.
Catherine of Siena is one of the most revered woman saints in the Roman Catholic Church. She was born in 1347, and she only lived 33 years, but during that time she was very influential. She was a scholar, she was a writer, she was a mystic. She was influential in the move of the papacy from Avignon back to Rome. She wrote scholarly works, prayers, and she was renowned for her wisdom. So I've borrowed from one of her prayers as the inspiration and source of our meditation this morning. Spirit of life and love and breath, as the sea is in the fish and the fish is in the sea, so we are in you and you are in us. And so we are all in one another. Let us know this in our hearts and our minds and our bodies as we take time now in silence together.
Hello, everybody. A few words on my spiritual journey. As a child, I was a Catholic, period, full stop. I was a Catholic just like my father and his father before him, and so on back to the dawn of recorded history, or so it seemed. I went to CCD classes and church every Sunday because when you're Catholic, that's what you do. There were strict rules about what's right and what's wrong, and lots of other rules, the purpose of which I never really fully comprehended. As a young adult, I became increasingly uncomfortable with the Catholic Church's teachings. I couldn't understand all of its so-called pro-life efforts with so few efforts to eliminate the unjust, racist, and immoral death penalty. Its patriarchy, misogyny, and homophobia bothered me. Then later, when the stories surfaced of some priests destroying lives and of others who enabled them, the chasm between me and the Catholic Church just became astronomical. When I was a young adult, if you asked me about my spirituality, I probably would have said that I don't have any. If I was forced to spend some time thinking about it, I might have said, I don't know what it is, but being raised Catholic gave me a pretty clear idea of what it isn't. At that point in my life, my spirituality was through music. Although I've never really had the drive or the talent to sing or to play, I've always enjoyed listening. There was the early rock and roll and rockabillys of the 1950s, the British Invasion, the Atlantic Soul and Motown groups of the 60s, the classic rock that blossomed as FM radio grew in the late 60s and early 70s, the punk rock of the 70s and beyond. There was music that just made me feel good, and there was music that really spoke to me. Hymns to me are songs like John Lennon's Imagine, Bill Withers' Lean on Me, and the Dead Kennedys' satirical Kill the Poor. Over the years, especially since coming here to the Unitarian Society, I've come to view my spirituality through the lens of the story we read this morning. We were tired of living in a house. In that story, the children travel about, they leave things behind, and they take meaningful things with them, such as beautiful leaves, precious stones, and seashells. And in more than a decade here at the Society, I've gotten more than my share of leaves of scarlet and gold. One of those leaves is this very book. I first heard this book at a service at the Unitarian Society a number of years ago, and it reminds me of the simple beauty of nature and also how natural it is to find meaning in things everywhere you go and take that meaning with you. That was so liberating for me to change my entire review of religion or spirituality into something that one can choose. Not just that, but seeing it as something fluid. It will change. I love that. My next beautiful leaf requires a little bit of background. I confess that I used to be a self-appointed member of the grammar police. Language has rules and they must be followed. I knew the difference between lie and lay, who and whom. I even knew the correct uses of the apostrophe. I would even sometimes take a Sharpie with me when I was shopping so I could correct misspellings on signs at the grocery store. I made jokes behind people's backs about their poor grammar. Then, one day I was at a training seminar, and the facilitator mentioned just how elitist and classist grammar rules are. As that sunk in, I became ashamed. Can I really say that I believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person if I look down on somebody whose grammar doesn't fit with the standards I know? These are standards that I've learned because I was fortunate enough to be born without a learning disability. I was privileged enough to get a good education. I'm still trying to overcome my inner grammar police. It's not easy, but I am working on it. And to my kids, that doesn't mean you don't need to learn the rules. You still need to learn the rules. Something else precious that I picked up from my involvement at UU had to do with my involvement with OWL, the Our Whole Lives Curriculum in Human Sexuality. Now, if I say I grew up in Illinois, images of Chicago and its endless urban sprawl might come to mind for you, but I grew up in Southern Illinois. It's a territory that's a lot closer geographically and culturally to the Missouri Ozarks and to Monkey's Eyebrow, Kentucky. When I was a kid, gays and lesbians didn't exist. What I mean is, in my world, there was nobody who openly identified as LGBTQ. My reality in the 1970s was that nobody ever even talked about LGBTQ people unless it was an insult or a joke. And somehow I didn't see the hypocrisy of that. My parents taught me to respect other people, even if they aren't just like me. My parents fought to desegregate the schools in town. They worked on the Poor People's Campaign. They worked for social justice for the poor and for racial minorities. However, at home, nobody ever even mentioned LGBTQ people. Instead of applying my parents' principles of justice and equality, I became one of those awful people who repeated the hateful jokes and insults I had heard. Over the years, bit by bit, I came around. A bisexual woman that I worked with once told me that I was narrow-minded because I was only interested in people of one gender. And that really shook me. Her perspective was so completely different from my own, it helped me see with clarity my own hypocrisy. How dare she think she's better than I was? And then it sunk in and I realized I had no right to think that I was better than she. OWL classes have since taught me about the beautiful, fascinating array of gender identities and sexual orientations, and I've tried my best to transition from homophobe to ally. Another example of scarlet leaves and gold came from Arjuna Greist. Arjuna identifies as queer, and Arjuna uses gender-neutral pronouns. Arjuna wrote a song in memory of Jerry Falwell, somebody who made it a large part of his life's work to deny the worth and dignity of LGBTQ people. Arjuna's song is funny and heartwarming and true to Arjuna himself, while also treating Jerry Falwell with a respect that it seems unlikely Falwell would have offered in return. That Arjuna deliberately challenged himself to acknowledge the humanity of somebody who would deny it to them. I found that awe-inspiring, and I still do. I draw on that when I need to be reminded to be respectful of somebody with whom I vehemently disagree. There are so many other inspiring things going on at the Society, the way this community stepped up to help Arita, the way John Sass works tirelessly, supporting so many efforts, all with this huge welcoming smile on his face. The way Jessica shares her superpower of warmth and kindness everywhere. I could go on and on until your laptop battery dies. The Society is, for me, a never-ending source of seashells singing like the surf. I'm an imperfect person, and I still have a lot to learn. Even though I truly believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person, there are times when I fail to put that into practice. I'm grateful for all of it. For the frogs who are particular friends, for the challenge and inspiration to practice what I believe, and for all the scarlet leaves and gold.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Steve. Now, I invite you all to join in singing Libby Roderick's beautiful "How Could Anyone Ever Tell You?" I spent many hours standing on the sidelines of soccer fields, what seems like a lifetime or two ago. And recently I was taking a walk by the empty playing fields on Spring Street in Florence, down by the river. Above me, a turkey vulture was circling. It might have been one of those same turkey vultures that Jan Nettler took a picture of. And I thought, putting myself in its wings, shoes, head, they are behaving eerily, the flightless, featherless ones. Their fledglings are not congregating on the green expanse below, not chirping, chittering, or chasing after one another, not scurrying or scrabbling over scraps of carrion they never eat. We are behaving eerily, we featherless, flightless ones. There's an eerie feeling overlaying our days, a gray feeling even when the sun is out. Sometimes it feels like ominous quiet, although that may not be the case for those of you who have children at home. For many of us, there is a cloud of unease, uncertainty, and grief, both immediate and anticipatory. Some of you knew Nick Baskowski, who was a member of our congregation who died last week on March 31st. He was a kind, gentle young man who was trying to build a life for himself. Part of the eerie feeling, that cloud, is a call to consider our own mortality. And with that, to consider what's important to us. Why are we here? Do we matter? What are we called to do? Cathy's question, is the world good? Steve's question, what inspires and guides me to be the person I want to be? So for me, poetry is one place that I turn with those wonderings. Gerard Manley Hopkins was a 19th century poet and a Jesuit priest. He's an amazing, wonderful poet, but a little challenging because he used words in very unexpected ways. He mixed up their order. He turned nouns into verbs and verbs into nouns. The poem I'm going to read you, the first part of, is known by its first phrase as kingfishers catch fire. And I have probably read it 100 times over 50 years or more. I've only recently read it well enough to begin to understand it. And since most of you have probably not read the poem 100 times, I found pictures to help make better sense of his first 4 lines. And just so you know, because the pictures don't even help with this, a tucked string means a plucked string on an instrument. And a bow is the part of a bell that makes the sound when the clapper hits it. As kingfishers catch fire, dragonflies draw flame, as tumbled over rim in roundy wells stones ring, like each tucked string tells, each hung bell's bow swung finds tongue to fling out broad its name. Each mortal thing does one thing and the same, deals out that being indoors each one dwells, selves, goes itself, myself, it speaks and spells, crying, what I do is me, for that I came. What I do is me, for that I came. What is Hopkins saying? What beliefs? What faith does he declare? Is the world good? It's glorious. It's full of beauty and movement and sound, full of pride and joy, full of those leaves of scarlet and gold, those frogs who are particular friends. And he says, each hung bell's bow swung finds tongue to fling out broad its name. Every being has a purpose. To deal out, he says, that which is within it, its beauty, its gifts, its nature. Each one of us has a purpose, that is to be ourselves, to fulfill our role in the world's goodness, to learn and to grow. As Unitarian Universalists, as Steve said, we affirm and promote each person's inherent worth and dignity. And this comes from the Universalist belief that no one is damned and that God's love extends to all people. Every life has meaning. Every life has purpose. And Hopkins goes on in the next lines to say, the just man justices. If we are just, we practice justice. If we are compassionate, we practice compassion. If we are kind, we practice kindness. If we are musical or artistic, we make music or art. That is the way we speak ourselves. What I do is me. It is for that I came. So I invite you to maybe bask for a minute in that faith, to borrow it, if you can. I also take comfort in that mystical wisdom of Catherine of Siena and so many other mystics. As the sea is in the fish and the fish is in the sea, so we are in you and you are in us. And to which I added, so we are in one another. I'm pretty sure I said something like that last week. I don't mind saying it again. We acknowledge and reverence the interdependent web of creation of which we are all a part. We are behaving eerily. We flightless, featherless ones. We are missing the ways that we flock together, the ways our children flock together. And we know that the gray cloud that's overlaying our days is not going to dissipate soon. So ask yourself what you're practicing in these cloud-enshrouded days that selves yourself. You're doing it. Give yourself credit for that. Give yourself credit for your courage, your endurance, your compassion and kindness, whether for your neighbor or your children or your cat or your dog. Find something to celebrate and acknowledge your grief. Borrow someone's faith for a minute when you need it. We are in this together. And our final hymn is My Life Flows On in Endless Song. It's number 108. Take courage. Give yourself credit. Find something for which to be grateful. We are in this together. Go in hope and go in peace. We're going to thank you, Booker. Sure.
Thank you all for your wonderful notes in the chat. Thank you all for being here. For those of you who want to stay for social hour, we're happy to have you. For those of you who are done for today, it's been really nice being here with you all. You'll find in the chat the link to the visitor card if you are new today, and also information about RE programming today. So if you are still on for social hour, I think a lot of you probably know the drill. You'll be invited to join a group, and the groups will be anywhere from 2 to 6 people, depending on who stays on. And